From the ashes of one of the biggest letdowns in all of gaming, Capcom would have an impossible task: redeem a once revered franchise out of its fall from greatness. Devil May Cry, a series with incredible potential, had been left to rot due to corporate mismanagement. The person who was tasked with damage control on its second iteration late in its development would forever have their career's reputation tainted. Unless they could do the impossible. On February 17, 2005, Capcom would release Devil May Cry 3: Dante's Awakening, and it would be one of the best games ever made. Not only did it completely save the reputation of director Hideki Itsuno and Devil May Cry, but it completely revolutionized the action game genre once again, innovating on the formula in a new, fresh way, experimenting with a completely different approach that still felt familiar. Old and new fans alike found Devil May Cry 3 to be a near masterpiece. With the sheer amount of control the game gave the player combined with the freeform expressive nature of the game's stylish combat, it birthed a whole new form of play. The release of the game coincided with video publication platforms like YouTube, creating the perfect storm. For those who were enamored with the game and sought to get better at it, the path was clear. The path led to style play. The early years of the game's social development would then primarily focus around style play, a type of gameplay focused on creating intricate and creative combos, expressing one's overall mastery of the game's systems and execution of its more difficult mechanics, often edited to music and themed for a particular aesthetic. Anyone who wanted to expand their skill set within the game would use this freeform creative expression as their main outlet. It wouldn't be until around 2015, nearly 10 years later, that the paradigm would shift and speedrunning would come into the fray in a serious way. With a game as expressive as Devil May Cry 3 allowing so much player control, it's a no-brainer that the speedrun would be a sheer test of skill. Today, I seek to explain the intricacies of this run, plotting each piece of tech, strategy, and routing that the highest level of Devil May Cry 3 speedrunning has to offer. While the run stands on its own as a flashy showcase piece, there is actually a ton going on under the hood. So buckle up, this is going to be a long one. This is a segmented any% normal speedrun of Devil May Cry 3 Special Edition completed in 54 minutes and 34 seconds real time. With a more complicated game comes a more complicated speedrun, so we're going to have quite a bit of setup before the run starts proper. A segmented run is a speedrun created in many small segments, with as many attempts per segment as required to get the desired run. Then, once all of the segments are collected, they are edited together in post to make it look like the speedrun was done in one attempt. These runs are not your standard speedrun. All of the strategies and times that are accomplished in this run are ones that could be achieved in a single segment speedrun. I did this run segmented so that I could have the footage have the exact outcome for every level that I wanted in this showcase. This run is done on the 2006 SourceNext PC port of the Special Edition. The Special Edition released in 2006, just 1 year later, adding an additional second playable character, rebalanced difficulties, and additional modes. The original version was never ported to PC. On top of that, the addition of a turbo mode makes Special Edition the version of choice for speedruns. Turbo mode makes the entire game run 20% faster, making the entire speedrun faster by nearly 10 minutes. This version also has exceedingly fast load times, having nearly perfectly consistent 1 minute and 40 seconds of loads for every single run when played in window mode. On top of this, it also has no input lag, as opposed to the HD collection version, which notoriously has 1 frame plus of input lag. These things and a few other tidbits make this old PC port the best one for speedrunning, despite the unfortunate state the port launched in, with little to no controller support and many bugs. Thankfully, mods have been able to fix these main issues and make the game playable on this version consistently. This is an any% speedrun, meaning completing the game with any percentage completed. You don't need to do anything in particular, just beat the game as fast as possible by any means necessary. The run will be completed on the normal difficulty, the standard difficulty the game starts with unlocked. In order to unlock easy mode, the player must die 3 times, and while it's possible to start a new game from any difficulty, as long as you have it unlocked on one of your previous save files, normal is still the standard, as it has better balancing for a speedrun and is the intended first playthrough experience. This normal mode is the Japanese normal mode. The North American version of the non-special edition of the game was harder for Western audiences. They achieved this by making the Japanese hard mode the new normal mode for that release. The Special Edition reversed this change, standardizing the difficulty across regions, making the Japanese balancing system the standard. On top of this, it introduced 2 new modes, Yellow and Gold mode. The selection dictates how checkpoints and respawning systems will work on that save game. Yellow mode is how the original Devil May Cry 3 release functioned. Upon death, you have to restart the entire mission unless you have a yellow orb. This item is then used to respawn you at a checkpoint. Gold mode makes the process of dying a lot less painful by respawning the player from a checkpoint by default and only requiring an item to respawn instantly on the spot where you died. The speedrun chooses gold orb mode because there is literally no downside to doing so. One more thing before we start the actual run, if you want to watch the actual world record, you can go see it over on my WaifuRuns archives channel. I upload all the speedruns I ever finished there, and I have world records in both Devil May Cry 1 and Devil May Cry 3. I'm also attempting to get all 5 Devil May Cry world records at the same time. Most recently, I've gotten the cake or collect all kill everything world record for Devil May Cry 3. If you're interested in watching those actual runs, then there will be a link in the description. Finally, with all the groundwork laid, the speedrun can start. Of course, the game starts with a few cutscenes that we skip. The game opens with a narration from an unknown woman, telling a child's fairy tale about a demon who betrayed his kind for the sake of humanity. As it turns out, though, this is no fairy tale, it's real. And Sparta, the demon in question, had 2 sons, who are seen fighting to the death in the rain on the top of a huge tower. To make it even more anime, they're swinging their swords at each other so fast they create a bubble that makes it so not even a single raindrop can touch the ground. The scene ends with one of the 2 brothers taking a sword to the gut and falling into the rain. Hard cut to someone calling about your car's extended warranty. Our protagonist Dante, one of the 2 brothers, emerges from a shower and stylishly answers the phone. He is broke and can't even afford a car, so the scam goes unfallen for. Shortly after, he is visited by a follically challenged individual who seems to know who Dante is, name-dropping his brother as proof. He bears an invitation to a party that's about to get crazy, attacking Dante and then disappearing. This, fortunately, is no problem for Dante, as he is all fun and games, a nearly unstoppable demon killing machine. A being of pure competence and style, Dante takes out this surprise attack of demons in no time at all, leading us into the first mission. Insert the devil potentially crying. Before we get into the mission proper, we pop by the customized menu. This doubles as a shop and a place to change up the player's loadout. For now, we don't have many things we can change, but we do have one that is pretty significant. In the style menu, you can choose to play in one of 4 style modes. This dictates what the B button on the controller does when you press it. Each style has its own advantages and abilities. The default one is Trickster, which allows for dodges that give a large amount of invincibility frames, and more movement options in general. Below that is Swordmaster, which gives additional access to melee attacks, then Gunslinger, which provides access to additional gun attacks. But last, and certainly not least, is Royal Guard. Royal Guard is the absolute linchpin in this run, being used throughout the vast majority of it. It's a defensive style and allows the player to time a block and parry that can both completely eliminate all incoming damage and do the highest damage output of anything in the game. We head back to the menu and then start right into the mission. Because the MC3 does not fuck around, this mission is literally just the combat in this room. And while it's probably the best opening mission in the franchise, it doesn't leave much room for explanation, as the speedrun hits breakneck speeds literally 1 moment after the run starts. Oh, and it's over already. Okay, let's run it back and lay some groundwork before we dig into this delicious meal. Devil May Cry 3's controls are a natural extension and combination of both its prior entries, with A being the jump button, X the shoot button, and Y the melee button. As mentioned before, the B button now controls the style that's equipped, and in our case, that blocks. Red bumper locks on, and there's a reticle. The reticle itself shows which enemy you're locked onto and also its health, each quarter of the circle representing 1/4 of its total HP. The lock on target can be switched by clicking in the left stick to juggle multiple enemies. With the B button now occupied, dodging is once again relegated to the context-dependent jump button, and tied to the direction of the analog stick in relation to the direction the character is facing, just like in DMC1. The rest of the controls don't come into account until much later in the run, so I'll cover those as they come up. The game has a series of built-in pause combos similar to the first game, with the frequency of the Y button press dictating what attacks comes out in the next combo string. This is, of course, in addition to the other command line attacks that are triggered at any point by holding the left stick in a direction relating to the lock-on and pressing Y button. This allows for a free-flowing combat system where the pause combos can be interrupted at any point by these command line attacks, allowing the player to build their own unique strings in combat. Okay, so what about the run? Well, shit, okay, I didn't explain that. What the hell is that? Okay, well, each style allows for a myriad of different combat options. These usually use the same sort of commands as the command line attacks, but instead of pressing Y, you press B instead. So in this case, with Royal Guard and the left stick being neutral, B blocks. But if you put a forward input with a lock on, it does a release instead. This block can be held down to reduce damage taken, but if the attack is strong enough, it'll break the block, causing even more damage to be taken. You can, however, time the block button, only pressing it just before the enemy's attack hits you. This will result in a perfect block. This has the added benefit of removing all damage from the attack. In the top left, you can see this green ball. This represents the stored damage, also known as rage meter from successful blocks. Regular and perfect blocks both help to fill this meter, with perfect blocking filling it much faster. The perfect block is a 6-frame window trick, meaning that you have 6 frames before the attack hits you to press the block button in order to perform a perfect block. This equates at 60 FPS to roughly 1/10 of a second. This meter represents the attack animation. The green part is the frames where inputting a block will result in a perfect block. The red section is where the attack would instead hit you. This rage meter can then be used during a release to increase its damage output. The more meter that's stored, the more damage dealt. This release can also be timed more precisely to greatly increase its damage output. A perfect counter, also known as a gold release, has a much tighter timing, only leaving 3 frames to input the counter. This means it has a 1/20th of a second timing to hit. This is what is used to kill the first 3 enemies in an instant, and it'll be used a lot throughout this run. In fact, it's probably the single most important piece of tech in the entire game. It's important I explain it properly here because in the early game they happen pretty much non-stop. This fight consists of waves of enemies that spawn in the same order and in the same location every time. Pretty much every combat encounter in the game works this way with little to no randomness. This, in combination with the fact that enemies will almost always attack right as they spawn in, allows us to position Dante in the perfect spot, to then be able to gold release them and kill them in an instant as well. This isn't always the case though, so we do actually have to use our sword at some point. The basic 3-hit combo kills the first enemies, prides, in one combo, which is good because the third hit usually sends them flying away otherwise. To avoid this third attack sending them away when we don't want it to, we perform a trick reminiscent to the DMC1 tech /canceling. In true creative fashion, its name in DMC3 is /canceling. While Royal Guard has already proven itself to be invaluable, the releases are not the most important or common thing that we use for this style. You see, in order to be able to have a reaction block, the block needs to be able to come out at pretty much any time. And to do so, it needs to cancel other animations. In the case of DMC3, Royal Guard can cancel pretty much 99% of all animations in the game, allowing you to cut the 3-hit combo short at 2 hits, restarting the combo over with a /cancel. For certain enemies though, this isn't ideal, as the final hit that kills the enemy has an effect on the length of its death animation. For example, the final hit of the basic 3-hit combo causes a faster death animation than the second hit. This influences how fast the next enemies spawn. The red boys here, Lusts, who spawn in next, have much more HP than a Pride does. For this enemy, we /cancel a combo and lead into a high time launch that will kill with a Helmbreaker, because Helmbreaker has an even faster death animation than the third slash of the normal combo. We get in position and wait for the next wave to spawn in, standing in a spot that allows us to gold release all 3 enemies at once. The Lust once again has too much HP to die, so we finish it off and then kill the next 2 spawns. The third Pride then attacks us and we change our lock on to aim at the Lust on the other side of the room. This allows us to gold release both of them before finishing off the Lust. One more kill sets up the next wave and then we have 2 Lusts this time. /canceling the first as it spawns in knocks it down and keeps it juggled in the air, while we pray that the other Lust attacks us. In this instance it does, and we gold release all 3 enemies, leaving only one Lust barely alive. We hit him a few times while we wait for the final wave to spawn in. They spawn in and we stand next to the downed Lust. Once the Pride attacks us, we release his attack to hit everything in the room. Then we kill the final Lust and that's the last enemy of the encounter. Once all of the enemies in the mission are killed, as long as all of the red orbs, this game's currency that they drop on death, are collected, the mission will end. At the end of every mission, we get a rank. Achieving a higher rank grants a bigger bonus for red orb rewards at the end of each mission. For the first 2 missions, we're searching for an S rank. The technical explanations don't stop there though, as now we have to explain the ranking system. The ranking system in Devil May Cry 3 is pretty complicated. It's a lot more complicated than any of the ranking systems we worked with thus far in the series. At the end of every mission, you're given a rank. These ranks can range from D, C, B, A to S, and even SS. These ranks all have an associated bonus of orbs or a currency that's given to you for achieving that rank at the end of the mission. The lowest rank you can get being a D, only giving you 500 orbs, and the highest rank, an S rank, giving you an extra 5,000 orbs. These mission end ranks are based on 5 criteria: time spent, orbs collected, stylish points, damage taken, and items used. On all 5 of these criteria, you can get up to 5 points. If you get an S rank on time, for example, you'll get 5 points. An A rank gives 4, a B rank gives 3, a C rank gives 2, and a D rank gives 1. These points are all added together to give you your final mission score. And these mission scores tell you what rank you're going to get. If you get a double S rank, that means that you got all 25 possible points. If you got between 23 and 24 points, then you'll get an S rank. If you got between 18 and 22 points, then you'll get an A rank. If you got between 13 and 17 points, then you'll get a B rank. If you got between 8 and 12 points, you get a C rank. And if you got between 5 and 7 points, you get a D rank. Okay, so now we know that getting a score from each of these criteria will then add up to get our total mission rank. But how do we get a score from each of these criteria to be what we want it to be? Well, the basics are pretty simple. Time is based on a par time, so getting under that par time gives you an S rank. Orbs is also based on a par orb, so getting more than the par orbs will give you an S rank. Stylish points is based on a par stylish rank. I'm going to go into more details about how that works exactly. Damage is based on a par of damage, so you need to have less than the total amount of damage spent here for the S rank. And then items used is based on a par items used. But this one always is the same. It doesn't change depending on any other criteria. Basically, if you don't use any items, you'll get an S rank, and using certain items will affect your rank more than others. Style points are a completely new and unique system that's way more complicated than any of the other things on the ranking system. I had to have help reverse engineering this system from both my girlfriend and Mizuki, so shout outs to them. Basically, style points is calculated based on this formula, which is damage done at each rank multiplied by the multiplier that rank gives you, divided by total damage done across the level. That big old formula could be a lot to understand, so why don't we illustrate our point with a bit of an example. Let's say on this mission you did 10,000 damage across the entire mission. This was split up between 5,000 damage done at a D on the style meter, 3,000 done with a S on the style meter, and 2,000 done with a triple S on the style meter. How would this affect our stylish points? Well, if you take the 5,000 damage done at a D rank and then multiply that by the 2,000, which is the multiplier for a D rank, then add that to the 3,000 damage done at S rank and multiply that by the 6,000, which is the multiplier for the S rank, and then add that to the 2,000 done at a triple S rank, multiplied by the multiplier of 8,000, which is the triple S rank multiplier, and add those all together, and then divide by 10,000, that will give you your stylish points, being 3,405 style points. What that actually means for your end mission rank for style points depends on the mission and difficulty. I've noticed through looking through all of the criteria, you are never required to get more than 6,500 style points to get an S rank on style. In fact, most of the time, it's around the 3,500 range. It just depends on what the mission is. Theoretically, you could get a perfect 8,000 score, but you'd have to do all of the damage done on the mission in a triple S rank, which, if you know the style meter system, isn't possible because you have to build it up there first. We get damn close though, as on the first mission, we got 7,207 style points. In previous iterations of this ranking system, these criteria actually would be far more consistent, but in DMC3, it's a lot more nuanced and complicated. That's because these 4 criteria, excluding items used, of course, actually change their criteria based on what mission and difficulty that you're playing on. For example, you'll actually receive a more generous par time on higher difficulties because it's expected that you're going to take longer to complete the mission. The same thing can be said for orbs, stylish points, and damage, except for not always. It doesn't have a clear rhyme or reason for exactly how it works, and there are some exceptions. For example, every single mission on Dante Must Die has a par damage of 0, meaning it's actually a lot harder to get a S rank on damage taken on Dante Must Die than it is on normal or other difficulties. And that's not just because the enemies are harder, but also because the criteria itself is more strict. Basically, the TLDR is that these don't have hard or fast rules. There's criteria that you need to meet with each of them, but every single mission and difficulty has its own unique orientation of criteria that needs to be met. That makes a lot of sense, right? Every single mission and difficulty has a different set of balancing, so the ranking system needs to adjust for that. And that's actually not that new or complicated. What is really complicated about it, though, is that the way that they scale across their ranks is also varied depending on mission and difficulty. For example, the time that you need for a par time on normal might be 2 minutes, but getting a 1 minute and 30-second time would give you an A rank. However, on Dante Must Die, it might be 10 minutes, and you need to get under a 15-minute time to get an A rank. The only real way to know what that is to look it up. The DMC speedrunning wiki actually has a big resource of this that tells you pretty much all of the criteria for every mission and every difficulty. Thankfully, in the case of DMC3, these ranks don't matter a huge amount. I mean, they do, but not as much as they do in a game like Devil May Cry 1, for example, where the entire run is based on the orb economy. We only really need to get 2 required S ranks in the entire run, that being on Mission 1 and Mission 2, so that we can buy a move that we really need for Mission 3 and onward. But beyond that, the ranking system isn't going to play too big of a factor, although we are trying to get as high ranks as possible as we can without losing time. Back to the actual speedrun, the fight continues outside as Dante gets dressed and starts Mission 2. This mission is also literally just a fight, as DMC3 is one of the most based games of all time. It starts off hot too. Perfectly standing still, we switch targets to lock onto one of the enemies in the back. The prides instantly attack and we do a gold release to kill 3 enemies at once. The other 2 are cleaned up with a quick combo. This triggers the next wave to spawn in, and we take our time to reposition and launch a Lust in the air with a high time. Then we jump on its back and free ride it into the corner. This isolates this fight and makes the other enemies gather up around us, watching as we destroy their friend right before their eyes. Once he's beaten to a pulp, we arrive at a super technical trick, one that has a 50% chance to crash the game. Lining it up and knocking him down like a bowling alley, we instantly gold release, killing 3 prides and hitting the last Lust. This allows us to then instantly juggle the Lust, killing it as the next Lust spawns in. When played at full speed with the untrained eye, you might not even know that something important happened here, but we just skipped 3 Lust spawns and 2 prides, saving a massive 10 seconds on this second mission. This is called a wave despawn, and while it isn't exactly known how it works, our best guess is it works a little something like this. In every combat encounter, there are 2 types of enemy groups and waves. Enemies spawn in waves. Sometimes an entire wave will spawn in all at once, and when you kill them all, then the next wave of enemies will spawn. A great example of this is the first set of enemies in Mission 2. These 5 prides all spawn in at the same time, and the only way to get the next set of enemies to spawn in is to kill them all. Once those first 5 enemies all die, the first wave is over and a new wave of enemies spawns in. But this next wave is more complicated. This next wave also has groups. The first group is the 2 Lusts and 3 prides that spawn in all together. Groups are different than waves because groups progress based on a myriad of additional factors, not just having all of the previous enemies being deceased. Sometimes they're on a timer. Sometimes killing certain enemies, key demons for example, cause the next group to spawn. And sometimes it's when a certain amount of enemies die. In this instance, once 3 demons die, the next 4 will start to spawn in. These next 4 demons are part of Group 2. We know that this is a different group instead of the next wave because we have enemies alive when they start to spawn in. And killing all of those enemies triggers a new wave, featuring just 1 Wrath. The trigger for spawning in new groups is dynamic, but the trigger for ending a wave is always the same: kill every enemy. The more astute of you may have already known where this is going. Killing every enemy in a group at the same time before new enemies get to spawn in from another group actually can meet the conditions for the wave to end. In this instance, that means completely skipping the second group by killing the first group all at the same time. This is because the game is constantly checking if the enemies in the wave are dead, and doesn't factor in if all of the groups have spawned in yet. This sometimes can cause the game to freak out, and in this instance, crash. No one really knows why it crashes, but it either does or it doesn't, hence a 50-50 chance. This saves 10 seconds, which this early in the run on such a short mission is a huge time save. So everyone just goes for it anyways, and if it dies, it dies. Back to the combat, with the second wave finished, we have a Wrath, which can't attack directly. They only explode after being shot. After 9 shots with Ebony and Ivory, we shoot and then immediately press the block button. the 10th shot making him explode. Royal Guard can literally block everything in the game with good timing, including explosions. There's only one exception to this, and it won't come up often. This builds our revenge meter, making it so that our next release will do a lot more damage. We reposition so that we are in the midst of the next enemy spawn, and Gold released this pride's attack, instantly killing 2 prides and 2 lusts. A Gold release wouldn't normally kill a lust, but because we have that stored meter, the increased damage puts us above their health threshold, making this release much more important than the other ones. The next wave spawns in with a Wrath, and we farm it for Rage Meter, once again killing his demon friends in the meantime. This just leaves a Lust, who we then clean up rather quickly. This then spawns in our first boss fight, the Hell Vanguard. It's not really a boss, it's more of a mini boss, but it'll be gone in no time no matter how you identify it. When attacking it, it'll quickly clash with Dante. Then this rebound hit is perfect to counter with a Gold release. We stand back and shoot at it to bait out more attacks that we can then block to build more Rage Meter. Once we have enough, we finish this with another clash and then counter. With mission 2 completed, Dante has finally rid his shop of the demons, the unnamed shop now completely destroyed. He looks up to the giant tower that's risen out of the ground. This tower has completely destroyed the city, and beckons to his brother Vergil, who seems to be the culprit of this situation. Classic Family Feud moment. The S rank on this mission allows us to finally visit the customized menu to buy something. We go to the action menu where you can buy new moves and abilities for your melee weapons and buy Stinger level 1 and 2. This is the only action purchase in the entire game. Stinger is a move where you hold lock on and forward while doing a melee attack. This is simply the most useful move in the game, no contest. It's great for crowd control, has really good damage, and is the fastest form of movement in the whole game. People often ask if the Trickster style is fastest for movement, and the answer would have to be no. Because you can cancel the recovery animation by blocking with Royal Guard, Stinger spam is by minutes faster than anything else in the game. This will be our main form of movement for the rest of the run. Heading into the bar, we break another jukebox and unveil our first dial. Hitting these dials repeatedly causes it to light up and activate environmental objects. Here, it breaks open this door. Going through it, we pass by Kurt Cobain and grab the trusty shotgun. The shotgun automatically equips, and like in DMC2, you can swap between the guns by pressing the left trigger. We immediately equip it as it's going to be very useful as we head into the strip club. Here we're introduced to a new enemy type, Sloths. Sloths are another one of the 7 deadly sin enemies that are mostly punching bags. This one's gimmick is that he's too lazy to move, so his normal movement is really slow, but in lieu of this he can teleport at will. He also is much tankier than the other 2 enemy types. Activating the fight, all 3 of them attack us at once, blocking the middle and right one, setting us up for this combo where we hit them up against the pillars. We attack them as we wait for the third to attack, Gold releasing his attack, instantly killing the first 2. Now we're introduced to a new piece of tech called a shotgun cancel. Because Royal Guard is absolutely fucking busted and can cancel pretty much every animation in the game, we use that to our advantage, canceling the recovery of the shotgun firing animation, making it so that we can loop it really fast like this. By shooting then blocking back and forth, we have an insanely high damage per second, killing these high HP enemies in only 2 seconds or so. The downside is that it sends enemies flying, so in order to do this, we must pin them up against the wall first. After killing the third sloth, a new wave of enemies spawns in, and we make it our priority to pin the sloths to the wall before they get a chance to teleport away. While attacking the sloths, the prides will come up and attack us, and we can use this as an opportunity to gold release them, killing them and doing massive damage to the sloths as well. Once we are down to 1 sloth remaining, we jump on the enemy's back, causing a free ride. We can then shoot to extend the free ride all the way to the exit. Here you can see my terrible stinger movement. It's really fast, I swear, it's just also pretty hard. We arrive at the base of the tower. Dante is seeking to climb to the top so we can say hello to his little brother Vergil. But before we can get there, there is the great gatekeeper Cerberus in the way. This fight is a huge reset point in the speedrun as there is a lot of luck involved. Cerberus has ice surrounding each of his 3 heads. You need to use the guns to shoot the ice off the heads before you can do damage to the actual boss. These 3 heads all have different attacks. Which head is centered determines which attacks are done. Some attacks are much better than others. We want attacks that allow us to parry them while also not having big downtime between being able to do damage. We shock and cancel the ice off the heads and then hammer away with the default combo, making sure to let go of lock on and changing our direction of swinging mid-combo to hit as many heads as possible. If we do enough damage consecutively, then we can get him to lie down and roll over like a good boy. This allows for massive damage essentially for free, but after he gets back up, he'll enrage and start into a new phase. This is often accompanied by reapplying the ice protecting his heads. Each time we break a head, that head's attacks are no longer possible, so we hope for good head breaks. We are left with one and we bait out a headbutt. We can gold release this to instantly end the fight. This fight is one of the most dynamic in the entire game. There are so many possible combinations of attacks and stun timings that can happen here that almost every single run plays out completely differently. Despite this, we show the puppy who's boss, and he grants us his soul, asking us to go forth with him. This unlocks the second melee weapon of the game, Cerberus. Entering the next door ends the third mission of the game, and sends us face first into the game's secondary protagonist. Or at least I wish it would send me face first into her. Introducing Lady.
Roger fucking Rabbit rejects.
No, not that one. Not taking kindly to our protagonist's newfound nunchuck skills, she fires a rocket launcher at him. To no avail, as it seems to have made his day substantially better. Dante asks if she's here for the party too, but she drives off without a word. This starts mission 4. We now have Cerberus, the three-headed ice nunchucks, which, while are very cool, are not going to be used in the speedrun very much, just for the next 2 missions. Our goal is to head to the top of the tower, but it's a bit of a maze. In this hallway, we knock an enemy over and jump on their back. This allows us to ride them to the exit of the room, making sure to shoot to extend the ride. Here, we're introduced to a new enemy, the Enigma. My man has some range and does not like to stun. We take out the 3 in the center of the room and then are forced to track down a few lusts. It's best to hit them against a wall and then shotgun cancel them to death, as the shotgun, when fired like this, has the highest DPS of any of our current options. Despite this, lusts aren't always cooperative, and when they aren't, we have another new option to deal with them. It's called switch canceling. By starting an attack with one weapon, then switching to the next mid-combo and starting an attack with that weapon, we can attack faster than just using one weapon. This also stops us from accidentally sending the enemy flying, allowing us to keep them close and keep up the damage. With that room cleared, we head into the next classic Capcom elevator. I don't know why. Maybe elevators in Japan can only hold like 3 things at a time or something, but these statues are too heavy for the elevator to rise up, so we have to clear them out before activating the elevator. Not only does this happen in this game multiple times, but it also happens in Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 4. I don't know what's up with engineering over there in Japan, but they need to get some elevators there stat. On the way up, we make sure to shoot Ebony and Ivory between our jump and our wall jump for a little bit of extra height, hitting the level change trigger early. We equipped the shotgun here because we're instantly going to be using it for setting up a big trick. Devil May Cry 3 is a very technical game, but pretty much all of the tricks are intended mechanics, with the exception of 2 moments in the speedrun. This is the big exception. Normally in this mission, you would have to clear this room of enemies, and then head up 1 more floor into this bridge that ultimately collapses, trapping you in a pit fight. Once you complete it and escape the pit, then you arrive at the Gigazip boss fight. This boss is a hugely annoying random mess, with its first 2 flights being the only scripted ones. If played perfectly, you can consistently kill it in 2 cycles, but it's really tight, and the 3rd flight he arrives out of a random hole. Once he is finally killed, however, you can enter the next room, and it's actually the same room that we're in currently. The item that you end up collecting in here is actually the level end trigger. So in theory, if you could get there somehow and grab it early, you could skip those extra fights and the annoying boss fight. This is where our first glitch comes into play. By launching this new enemy, a gluttony, up onto the railing and then baiting an attack from it, we can jump on the adjacent railing and gold release his attack towards the end of the level. This causes us to gain insane speed and clip out of bounds, landing on a thin piece of collision on the opposite side of this wall. From here, we could just walk back in bounds and end the level by grabbing the key item. This is a technique called a zip. When you do a gold release, you get an insane burst of speed, but this speed is then rapidly decelerated by the air and ground friction around you, causing you to come to a halt. But when you're standing on an edge of a railing at certain angles, you sometimes can confuse the game, and the game registers you as standing on the ground, so it actually applies ground friction. But you're not actually on the ground. There's so little ground underneath you. When you gold release, there isn't enough to actually slow you down. Because of this, you have no friction at all and travel at insane speeds. So fast, in fact, that you can go right through the wall. The only reason we stop is because we land back on the ground again, and the friction is then applied. This can be done on any edge surface where you can do a gold release. This sounds like it would have a ton of utility, but because there's not that many edge surfaces in the game, and a lot of those areas don't have enemies in them, that means that you can't zip in most rooms. Even if you could, most rooms are completely self-contained, meaning there's nothing that you could sequence break or skip to because, well, you have to go through a load screen to get to the next area. This shows you how lucky it is that this scenario is even possible, as not only is this one of the few rooms in the game that has an edged railing that you can zip off of, but there's also enemies in the room, and it happens to be connected to a later part of the level that has an end level trigger attached to it. On top of that, you just barely can get the right angle to be able to go through the wall in the direction that you want. If any one of these variables had been different, then this trick would just simply not be possible. The skip is massive and saves almost exactly 2 minutes over optimal pit fights and gigapede fights. It's called Gigazip because it's just the perfect name. This leads us into Mission 5, where we're introduced to Jester, a YouTube commenter who seems to lend a helping hand to Dante, giving him tips to progress up the tower. It's not all fun and games though, as he gives Dante a present, a new enemy type, Bloodgoyles. Bloodgoyles split and duplicate indefinitely unless you turn them to stone by shooting them before attacking them with melee weapon. The first 3 are simple. One shotgun blast turns them to stone, and then the basic combo kills. We set up the third to stinger across the arena towards the next wave spawns, so we're close to them and can turn them to stone before they get away. The larger ones have more health and will be knocked away if we do a basic combo, so we finish with a switch cancel. The Bloodgoyles can also decide to split up on their own, and if there are only 2 left, they tend to try and do so. We target the one attempting to do so and turn it into stone before it gets the chance. Afterwards, we clean up the rest and head into the lightning portal. The original release of the game didn't have this arena. This Jester boss fight is a new addition. There are 3 of these throughout the game, and the first one is the only one that's required. By shooting at Jester's feet, we can make him tire out, and then when he takes a break, we start blasting him with the blicky. Shotgun cancels are really fast and do huge damage. Once he regains his composure though, there's a myriad of attacks that he can choose. We get the best possible attack, overhead balls. We can easily roll guard this attack to build meter and it ends quickly, allowing us to tire him out again and release into shotgun cancels for another cycle. Then we get the next best luck, as he teleports to the center of the room and lets us beat on him while the balls surround him across the room. His shields have huge damage reductions, so we do much less damage in this phase of the fight, and our guns do less damage, so it's better to switch cancel instead. We look for the 2 balls that spawn close to us and guard them for meter before it's time for the clown to bow out. Once he's dead, we head to the top of the tall room from Mission 4, as we now have the astronomical board, which unlocks a few pathways for us, as well as a jump pad at the bottom of the room. We don't need it though, as we do some platforming to get the trident quickly. From here we can go back to the room from Mission 4 and grab the Soul of Steel, the item that we need to cross that invisible bridge that we haven't seen yet because we skipped it with Gigazip. This spawns in a new wave of enemies, and it's an extremely scripted fight. We use our release to instantly kill the 2 enemies at the bottom. Well, we would have if he didn't jump. Regardless, the rest of the enemies are dealt with handily, and we head back to the tall room and up to the invisible bridge that we can now traverse across. This unlocks an elevator, and you guessed it, it's one that's manufactured by Capcom as well. If too many enemies are on it at once, it'll return back to the bottom. Fortunately for us, that won't even get close to happening. Jumping allows us to spawn in the enemies a bit earlier, then we can block their attacks to build rail guard meter. We need an S rank on this mission for the additional orbs. The best way to guarantee this is to build a high style meter on this elevator and to collect all of the orbs, because the higher your style meter is, the more orbs the enemies will drop. These 2 factors on the ranking system play into each other greatly. You can simply build a triple S rank by doing the normal combo with Cerberus, making sure to hit all 4 enemies at once. Each enemy hit counts as a unique hit and builds the style meter really fast. You can also taunt after they die, maintaining the build style between waves. We jump off the wall at the end to hit the level transition a bit early. This leads to the second boss fight of the level, Agni and Rudra. Yet another gatekeeper, the Mauler twins from Invincible are here, and they don't have their heads for some reason. This is the game's only double boss, and it requires a bit of micromanagement on both bosses at the same time. If you kill one before the other and let him get away, they'll combine, making their moveset different and increasing their defense greatly. Most importantly, this transformation is accompanied by a 20-second long unskippable cutscene. And that we cannot stand for. That's okay though, because that definitely won't happen. We make sure of it. By stingering to Rudra on the left, we can get close ASAP. Then we can shock and cancel him point blank for huge damage. He pushes us to the other side of the arena where Agni is, and we stun him out of his attack. When Agni comes to hit us though, we gold release his attack, hitting both of them for massive damage. This is when we start to abuse the boss's built-in weakness. If you attack them, they'll block you, and you can hear a ting sound and see a white flash. That means they're going to attack you back right afterwards. This is great because you can knock their swords out of their hands if you parry two of their attacks in close timing to each other. This allows for a huge amount of free hits. You can parry with any attack, but by far the easiest way to parry is to do a Royal Guard release. We do it intentionally super early, as to not accidentally gold release though. That would send us flying through them and screw over our positioning. With one of the two having their sword gone, we can do free damage, and also set up the next stun for the other boss, shooting him to bait an attack, and then parrying the sword out of his hands. We simply loop this back and forth until the bosses are both dead. Impressed by our immense strength, the two of them let us pass through the doors, but insist that we take them with us, as they want to be used to do great things. Dante agrees, but on one condition.
No talking.
This is where the next mission starts, but before we gain control, we were shown what sort of crazy shit that lady's been up to since the end of mission 3. I think I'm in love. Back to the game, we enter the customized menu and equip Agni and Rudra instead of Cerberus. We can switch between weapons and guns in real time in DMC3. This is a somewhat new addition, as in DMC2 you could do this but only with guns. In DMC3 you can do it with guns and melee weapons, but you're limited to only 2 guns and 2 melee weapons at once. Cerberus is okay, but Agni and Rudra is this run's bread and butter for quite some time, so we equip it here. The pillar in the center of the room holds a weapon that needs to be used to open the door to progress. In order to power it, we need 2 orbs that can be found in the next rooms. There's a secret orb cache on top, so we grab it as we head into the next room post-haste. Here lies 3 possible paths, each with its own trial. The trial of skill in the middle, the trial of wisdom on the left, and the trial of combat on the right. We only need to complete 2 of these trials to progress, and the fastest ones are the middle and the left paths. The first has a hallway filled with spikes coming out of the walls, floor, and ceiling. This is completely random. On the way back, there are some enemy spawns, and we use the gluttony to free ride back to the exit faster. Next up is the Trial of Wisdom, and it's just a puzzle. The puzzle says that life has many stages, from a baby on all 4s to a young man standing on 2 legs, and then it ends with an old man leaning on a cane. These stages are represented by the number of lights on the doorway, making the path 4, 2, 3. The paths are in the same spot every time, so we can just memorize the way to go. If you get it wrong, then you have to start the whole puzzle over again, and you have to fight a wave of extra enemies. That's really slow, so we don't do that. With 2 items collected, we head back to the pillar and it shoots the door open. From there, we head to the end of the mission. Snap back to the woman and she confronts Arkham, the man helping Vergil with the tower that we saw in mission 3. It's revealed that she is Arkham's daughter, and she obviously wants nothing to do with him. Boomers, am I right? She is promptly yeeted off the edge of the tower. Dante and the soon-to-be pretty little Stain are reunited as Dante catches a bit of rain. Lady does not take kindly to this and promptly shoots Dante in the face. Enter mission 7. In this mission, the meta for the combat is going to change quite a lot as we are introduced to some more advanced tech. Before we get to showcase it though, we need to head down the tower to collect an item that we need to power an elevator later. These jump pads actually boost the player higher if you stand still on them, so in order to speed them up, we wiggle the stick as we land to make sure we fall back down faster. We also look for opportunities to bonk our heads so we stop flying upwards as far and we can hit the next pad more quickly. About 3/4 of the way up, we grab a holy water off the ground. Holy waters are items that you can use to pretty much instantly kill everything in a room, or deal massive damage to a boss. In DMC3, they finally fixed the economy, so holy waters are quite expensive, and we won't see many throughout the run. This makes them all the more important to pick up when they're free and readily available. Back to the top, we head through this hallway where we're introduced to the new pawn chess piece enemies. They move slow though and aren't required, so we just run right past them and into the next room, where we are once again introduced to a new enemy type, but this time they're going to be hugely important. These are greeds, and they are some tanky motherfuckers. They carry around a coffin with them, which they use to spawn in more enemies. If you leave them alive, they'll infinitely respawn enemies for you to fight. The coffin has to be put into the ground and then some spirits fly out of it. If those spirits touch the ground, then more enemies will spawn. Our goal is to kill the greeds before they can spawn more enemies in. This can be difficult as they have so much health. Thankfully, we now have Agni or Rudra, and we can use them to do a new piece of tech called a jump cancel. When in the air, you can jump off of an enemy's head. Not only does this function as a double jump, but doing so also resets all in-air actions, whether it be air hike, wall runs, attacks, you name it. This can be abused to cancel the recovery animation of aerial attacks to loop them in quick succession. This is called jump canceling, colloquially. The aerial cross move on Agni or Rudra is very powerful and does lots of damage. It usually sends enemies flying as well. But some enemies like greeds can't be moved by the player's moves, so you can do this damaging attack in the air, then jump off of the enemy to reset it and do it again, quickly repeating this to kill them as fast as possible. This requires a large amount of skill in both timing and attacks of jumps, but also positioning, as not every enemy's jump cancel hitbox is the same size or position. For example, on the greeds here, you can't jump off of the coffin. We then quickly dispose of the 4 greeds that spawn in before any additional enemies can spawn, and collect the Siren Shriek, an item that we're going to be using to open a familiar door. We use the item from earlier to power the elevator and then use it to head back down to mission 4. You may notice that Dante stays floating in the air as the elevator goes downward. This is a funny side effect of the Style Switcher mod. Because we're playing on the OG PC port, we need to use mods to make the controller function. It's a huge pain and comes with some side effects, but this is one of the more innocuous ones. In fact, I think it's pretty funny. Dante simply gives no fucks, not even about gravity. In a hilarious turn of fate, though, we actually managed to fix this bug recently after I recorded this footage, and as it turns out, this loses time in this room, as the trigger to proceed to the next room is below Dante, so him being even higher in the air when the elevator goes down makes him hit it about a second slower. Once at the bottom, we see the flame door from mission 4, and we can use the Siren Shriek to put out the fire. Inside, we arrive at another greed room, but before they'll spawn in, we have to beat some balls first. Aerial cross is the best way to do this. After collecting a human skull, we need to then open yet another door. We're met with a much harder greed encounter though that we need to get rid of before we can proceed back to that room. This one also has lust spawn in at the start of the combat. Still, the formula is much the same, using jump cancels to kill the greeds first, then doing our best to remove the lust just like any good Mormon would. Thankfully, those leather pants Dante is wearing are actually magic underwear. Throughout the game, we're going to be trying to do the combat as fast as possible. Duh. It's a speedrun, that's obvious, but scripting the combat definitely makes this easier. Scripting in this scenario meaning doing the combat in the exact same way every time. Doing this when possible definitely helps, but with the limited tools we have this early on in the game, it's impossible to perfectly script all of the combat. This leaves a lot of room for adaptation, so rooms like this look almost completely different every time you do them. Back upstairs, we have one final fight with the greeds, and this time they're accompanied by the mini-boss from mission 2. Nothing makes you feel like a badass more than destroying a boss you struggled with earlier in the game, but now as a regular enemy. I hate to break it to you though, but they drastically lower the boss's health in most of these instances. Illusion broken, I know, I'm sorry. Upon killing the Vanguard, we level up our style Royal Guard. Devil May Cry 3 has a leveling system for its styles. Every time you kill enemies, you gain experience. You get more for larger and more difficult enemies. Once you get a certain amount, the style levels up and unlocks more abilities. If you kill every required enemy in the game, then you will level up one style to the max level at around mission 18. Because we skipped Gigazip and that pit fight, we have missed a lot of experience, so we're getting level 2 late. This leveling system is a big reason why Royal Guard is the best style for speedrunning, as it not only upgrades to get better, but starts off really good. Whereas the other styles mostly start off bad and then become better over time. For Royal Guard level 2, it gives us an additional orb to charge and store Rage Meter, and allowing for more damaging releases. But it also allows us to block and release in the air. This seems like a minor thing, but it's actually hugely important. You see, the way Royal Guard works makes it so that it comes out the first frame possible after pressing the block button. And this interacts with jumping in a really useful way. When you jump or roll, you get invincibility frames, basically a brief period of animation where you're invulnerable and can't take damage. When you block after jumping, you can make it so that the active parry frames come out right after the invincibility frames are over, essentially creating a buffer between your block or release attempt and the enemy's hurt frames. This makes the timing for both blocking and releasing attacks much more lenient, as you can time them later and have a larger window to both block and parry. This can't be used for every attack though, because rolling or jumping can often cause you to leave the hitbox of the enemy's attack, making it whiff entirely. A key example of this is the first Vergil boss fight, which we're about to get to. Now that the door is open, we can head to the tip of the tower where Vergil awaits Dante, the grand conclusion to our epic story at last. It's unclear why Vergil is doing what he's doing, or even why Dante cares. All the two brothers know though is that they want a fight. I hate to break it to you though, even though the intro cutscene is supposed to be this fight, it's not going to look anything like it. We immediately rush towards Vergil with a stinger, but make sure not to connect with it. If you do, then Vergil will instantly parry and wreck Dante's shit. Instead, we get close and let him attack, blocking his whole combo with Royal Guard. Once his combo is over, his guard is dropped for a short time. This is our chance to do damage. 7 jump canceled area crosses do the maximum amount of damage that we can do before Vergil breaks out of the stun. Vergil's recovery is based on the total amount of stun value done to him. So by doing aerial cross, we maximize the damage while minimizing the stun. Once we run out of stun though, any additional hit will cause an auto parry and a counter. We avoid this by counting our attacks carefully, and then when he's in recovery, shotgun canceling him to squeeze out a little bit of extra damage. We then repeat this process, building the Royal Guard meter for a counter, which then instantly ends the fight. Blue guy here gets absolutely washed, which is satisfying, but the cutscene makes for some crazy ludonarrative dissonance, even if it is one of the best in all of gaming. Dante not only loses the fight, but damn near dies in the process, getting stabbed in the chest by his own sword, and Vergil steals his amulet. This seems to unlock his demon powers, beckoning the fight to start once more. But Arkham convinces Vergil that they have what they need and they should move on, which he agrees to. This concludes Mission 7, and upon the start of Mission 8, we discover that I lied, as this is actually the best cutscene in all of gaming. With Dante's demon form unlocked, he is much more powerful than before. Testing his newfound strength, he runs down the side of the tower, fighting enemies along the way. At the end, he jumps into the mouth of a flying creature, Leviathan. And thus starts the mission. Before we start the mission proper though, we head into the shop. We haven't bought anything for quite some time, but now that we have Devil Trigger unlocked, we are going to be big spending on some purple orbs. These increase the maximum time you can spend in Devil Trigger, and with the money that we have saved up, we can buy quite a few. Devil Trigger makes all of your attacks do more damage, makes all animation speeds faster, greatly reduces damage taken, and heals over time. This makes it the single most useful resource in the game. Well, besides maybe your health. Can't live without that. I'll explain more about how it works as it comes up throughout the rest of the run. No need to do a huge info dump here. Trapped inside the Leviathan, Dante has only one goal: get out. No, not the Jordan Peele movie, but yes, there will be lots of running. There are 5 sacks in the starting area that need to be broken in order to progress. We quickly head around the area and eliminate them one at a time. The final one is on top of this wall of flesh. Normally, you're supposed to go through the tunnel and around, but that's slow, so we simply climb the side by jumping and then shooting to gain height and then jumping again. Throughout this mission, the ground will have a spot or so that'll do damage over time. Stomach acid from the beast that were inside. This is the only attack in the game that you can't block with Royal Guard. It's really not a big deal to take damage in this run though, so we simply ignore it. Heading through the mission's rooms, we see what appears to be organs behind a transparent wall. We'll need to get back there later. In the next hall, we are chased by Gigapede, who has firmly lodged himself inside this monster's colon. Sounds comfy. We can simply outrun him by using Devil Trigger to increase our movement speed. This is a great solution because you can't stinger away from enemies. Then we're introduced to Envies. Their gimmick is they can't be launched, but besides that, they're basically just prides. We knock one over and then ride him to the other side of the room, being sure to taunt his dead body as taunting builds Devil Trigger. Finally, we arrive at the monster's retina, and this room has quite the gimmick. In the center is the item that we need to progress, but in order to unlock this item, we need to reach a certain amount of stylish points. As we discussed earlier, this is done by doing more damage at higher style ranks. We didn't really tackle how to build style though, as that's a completely different system. The style meter is the bar in the top right that tells you what your current ranking is for your style. This decays quickly over time, and the higher your style rank is, the faster it decays. Each move in the game is assigned a certain amount of style points it provides to you on contact with an enemy. Then this is multiplied by the number of enemies it hits. On top of that, it also has a 2x multiplier if it was used to deal the killing blow on any enemy. Because of this, certain moves that kill enemies all at once or with one hit give an extraordinary amount of style. Devil Trigger in Devil May Cry 3 has a unique mechanic called a Devil Trigger Explosion. By charging the Devil Trigger by holding the activation button, you can store up power. Once you have at least 3 additional stocks turning red, you can then release to do a ton of damage all at once. We charge 4 stocks while blocking the envies because that's how many we need to instantly kill them. We rebuild our Devil Trigger at the same time by taunting and blocking their attacks with Royal Guard. These both also build up style. Interestingly though, because both taunting and blocking don't deal damage, they don't skew the average for stylish points on the mission ranking screen. Once we have a high style level and our Devil Trigger Explosion charge, we explode, building a ton of style points. In fact, this is most of the points that we need to pass the Retina Room. We just need a little bit more. So we do some high damaging attacks on the respawning enemies in a way that will keep the style meter high, building a ton of style points and ultimately clearing the room. Our secondary goal was to leave the room with full Devil Trigger and with full Rage meter. This is doable because jump canceling also builds a lot of Devil Trigger. That combined with taunting is more than enough to refill the full. From there, we run away from the Gampede one more time and end up back at the start of the mission. We head towards the organs and make sure to make a pit stop off at the shop first, so we can buy a purple orb, refilling our Devil Trigger back to full. This boss fight isn't technically a double boss, but it does have 3 health bars. There are 3 organs, the 2 lungs, and the heart. The heart in the middle is the one with the large health bar, but we can't hit it right off the bat. The lungs on each side have a gimmick each. The one on the left will absorb any orbs that spawn in the arena. This is important because there are additional enemies in this boss fight, envies that slowly chase you around. Getting healing from them is nearly impossible while the left lung is alive. The right lung, conversely, periodically drains your Devil Trigger. This is unacceptable, so we focus on the right lung first. Shotgun canceling deals with it handily, and once it's dead, we have a chance to attack the heart. This whole time, we've been charging Devil Trigger Explosion, and we use it to do massive damage on the heart, but also to kill some of the envies. We want at least one of them alive, though, as we're going to deactivate Devil Trigger and then gold release the attack from the envy. This does 2 things. It does massive damage, of course, but it also rebuilds a ton of Devil Trigger. Devil Trigger is built by taking damage, taunting, blocking, and also dealing damage. The build on Devil Trigger is 1-to-1 with damage dealt though, so dealing super damaging attacks like a charged gold release build a massive amount of Devil Trigger instantly. We then can charge another Devil Trigger Explosion and use it when the heart retaliates with a laser to end the fight in 1 cycle. Shout out to Bandhit for this strat. With Leviathan dead, Dante emerges from the Eye of the Beast at the bottom of the tower, and just so happens to run into the lady that we saw before. Oh hey, she literally is called Lady. Enter Mission 9, easily the most random and brutal reset point in the entire speedrun. Now that we're back to the bottom of the tower, our new goal is to try to stop Vergil from doing whatever the hell he's doing. It doesn't really matter what it is, as we're here in a brotherly feud, and that takes priority. It also takes no hostages and no exceptions. This mission introduces spiders, and these buggers are easily the most random enemy in the game. The fastest way to kill them is to jump cancel them with Agni or Rudra. Weapons in DMC3 have associated elements with them, and fighting enemies weak to that element doesn't increase 20% damage. The problem is, these fuckers love to jump around and can just counter your attacks. After we kill the first 2, we run over to the door to farm Royal Guard meter, while the next 2 spawn in. Then we use the door to gold release into a spider, dealing some pretty massive damage. We make sure to leave the room with Devil Trigger to set up for our next trick. After completing the puzzle, the next door opens and we instantly activate Devil Trigger for the extra movement speed. There are a bunch of enigmas in this room, and we're going to use this one to zip off the stairs across the gap, skipping the movement in this room. The downside to this is enigmas have absolutely terrible aim and miss most of their attacks if you stand still. In order to combat this, we are going to move as fast as we possibly can into the spot where we're supposed to zip from. If we're fast enough, then the shots from the enigma will most likely hit us on the first attempt, because we're running while it's shooting at us. Then we can use that to gold release off the stairs and zip across the room, skipping the entire area. This trick alone only saves about 20 seconds, but it is very cool. From here we just head to the next room where we get a key item that allows us to progress. On the way we meet some rotating blades on the walls. We can jump into the blades and block them to build meter and devil trigger. Next is the second spider fight, and this one is much worse than the first, as there are more spiders. We get lucky here and we use a release we got in the hallway to hit both spiders. We once again farm the door and pray spiders attack us to counter. Once that's over, we head towards the boss of the level, making a pit stop off to get more DT and guard from the blades. The next boss is Nevin, and she has a special property that makes her harder to deal with than some of the others. Just like my elementary school said about me, she doesn't play well with others. She has a shield that needs to be broken before you can damage her directly. We use aerial cross to weaken it before blocking her series of attacks. Then, once her shield is gone, she is vulnerable. But what attack you hit her with also matters a lot. If you don't do enough knockdown, then she won't fall over and you can hit her for less time. So aerial cross or shotgun are the best options here. We then devil trigger explode and release to do massive damage. After that, we switch cancel to get the maximum output. We need to get her just below half HP so we can kill her in 2 cycles. She teleports away and we block this as well. Chasing her around, we taunt and then block the ground, building rage meter for the second wave of attacks. With her defeated, we unlock Nevin, a sick-ass guitar weapon. Unfortunately, it's not enough to be used in the speedrun, so we just don't get to see it in this video. But maybe I'll make a video about it in the future. Mission 10 doesn't have much really in it, but it's a nice breather from the insanity that has been the first 9 missions. We grab an item that we need to progress like always, and then we free ride all the way out to the waterfall. Back in the spinning blade room, we're introduced to yet another new enemy, the Dullahan, the hardest enemy in the game, as they're made of metal. Their weak point is on their back, and in this room they fly in a pattern. We can kill them with 2 aerial crosses as they spawn. Then we block the blades to build up more resources. Backtracking through their zip room, we eventually arrive at the first spider room, and this time it has bigger spiders, queens to be exact. These have a lot more health and don't have a jump cancel hitbox, so our strategy is going to be pretty different. We bait the small spider into attacking us, and then we gold release it with our stored energy to instantly kill both of them. Then once the second wave spawns in, we use a holy water to kill them all at once. This is just because we don't really have a good way to fight the big spiders. Since they have no jump cancel hitbox, we already used all of our resources in the first wave. Holy waters, while powerful, don't actually have many good use cases because we needed to manage our devil trigger and royal guard meter for later rooms. But since this is the last encounter of the mission, none of that really matters. Devil Trigger is always reset to full at the start of every mission, and Rail Guard meter resets to 0. This makes this a perfect fight for using a Holy Water. Mission 11 starts the Gauntlet, as the next 3 missions are easily the hardest in the game. DMC3's mid-game is notoriously choke-heavy, and this is where most high-level runs come to die. We start by doing some movement, particularly one trick I haven't explained yet, even though I've been doing it throughout the run. This is called a reverse stinger. You see how there are enemies in the room and I did a stinger away from them? That's not supposed to be possible. Because the inputs to activate stinger include holding lock-on, that means you should only be able to do it in directions of enemies. Fortunately, this isn't exactly the case, as we can do a reverse stinger. It's performed by pressing the lock-on button 1 frame after pressing the attack button, essentially tricking the game into doing a stinger in any direction by adding the lock-on a little bit late. This is a frame-perfect trick and is exceedingly difficult, so it's used very sparingly. Here it's considered worth it because if you miss it, you don't really go anywhere, but hitting it saves several seconds because it triggers this stinger jump, sending you flying towards the door. Entering that door, we get introduced to yet another new enemy type. While substantially less hard, these enemies are substantially more annoying than dual hands. Soul Eaters can't be hurt while you look at them, so you need to look away from them and then turn around and hit them while they are very briefly vulnerable. We turn from the first one and then taunt and aerial cross, building up Devil Trigger. Then we use the increased movement speed from Devil Trigger to delete the other ones quickly. In this next room, we gun jump to the second floor, where we can then Royal Guard cancel this block from one side of the room to the other. Once both blocks are moved, a Vanguard and 2 Soul Eaters spawn in. We use this Vanguard's block as a good way to kill time while we wait for the Soul Eaters to become vulnerable, and then end the fight with some jump cancels. In the next room, we grab a hidden holy water and then get on the gondola. Dante, once again, wants nothing to do with these cutscenes and refuses to move. This gondola gets ridden a few times and it's never an auto-scroller. Once every enemy dies, the gondola ends, meaning the faster you kill the enemies, the faster it ends. The first wave we kill by doing a Devil Trigger explosion. Then we group up the second wave and use our charged release to clear them all at once. After that, it's mostly prides that die in just one combo, making sure to spawn camp them, weave in the fight as soon as possible. At the end, we get Gaurd from the Wrath and arrive at the next boss fight. This is Beowulf. He has one of the most impressive quick kills in the game, and I'm just going to let it play out before explaining it. Yeah, wow, that never gets old. Basically, this boss has a weak spot on its left eyeball. Hitting it makes all of the attacks do an extra 5 times damage. By hitting it ASAP, you can trigger a stun and then bait on an attack that allows you to fully down the boss. From here, we activate Devil Trigger and jump cancel on his eyeball to do insane damage. After he's down, he does a large area of effect attack, and we gold release this into his eyeball to finish the fight, ending Mission 11. Jester shows up when Dante collects the next key item and tells him what it does. It's a generator for the next section, and it gives Dante immense power, but in return, it sucks his health dry. This is a roundabout way of telling the player that the next mission you'll have unlimited Devil Trigger, but have constantly draining health. and then it tells you in plain English right afterwards. Mission 12 is flat out the hardest mission in the speedrun, and it's not because of the draining health. We instantly head back to the Gauntlet, and this time it's going to be a lot more difficult. If you remember all the way back in Mission 2, we talked about wave despawns, and we're going to do 2 of those here. Missing these loses over 30 seconds, killing any world record pace run. The first 3 gluttonies spawn in, and we rush to kill 2 of them, leaving the third one alive and hopefully half health so that we can use him for the first despawn. Then a pride spawns in, and normally after the gluttony dies, 3 more prides would spawn in, followed by 3 lusts and then a wrath. But instead, as this enigma on the other gondola spawns in, we build row guard meter off the pride and then high time them both into a pile. When the enigma starts to go off screen, we kill them both at the same time. Because the enigma is despawning and both of the enemies die at the same time, we skip the next wave, getting us right to the 2 slots afterwards. These then immediately set us up to do another despawn, skipping 3 more slots and another wrath. This time it has to happen at the same time as the wrath despawns on the second gondola. This is what we use the release for. With those spawns skipped, we only have 5 left. A gluttony and a sloth that we combo, then 1 more gluttony and 2 wraths. We build guard off of the wrath. If somehow you haven't collected a green orb by now, you literally have to at this point. With your health constantly draining, there isn't enough time to make it to the end of the level without grabbing one. Thankfully, enemies are set to drop green orbs way more often on this level. The pop-up screen here for the green orb loses 3 seconds and is avoidable all the way up until this point. But if you haven't gotten it yet, you definitely will now. This is kind of a 3 seconds of fake time save that moves around the run from PB to PB, depending on where you take damage. The next combat room is full of prides and lusts. We need to block a few more attacks before the boss on this mission, so we look for opportunities when they arrive. Prides normally die to a 3-hit combo, but with DT active, you can just do 1 slash and then 1 stinger. This is by far the fastest way to kill them. The next 2 rooms are full to the brim of blood goils, and they are optional, so we just run past them. In the cog room, we need to jump back up to the top, but the cog has stopped raising. We can wall jump off of it and then get enough height, but it's tight. If you hold the jump button in Devil Trigger with Rebellion, you'll start to glide and fall very slowly. We use this to make the jump a bit easier. The next room is a required combat encounter, but it features a Vanguard. It spawns in first, so it has to go down ASAP. With super good jump cancels, it dies in 2 cycles, and this frees us up to finish off the prides quickly. Once free of that scary room, we finally are freed from our curse, powering up the next area and returning Dante back to normal. We don't have unlimited Devil Trigger anymore, but at least our health isn't draining constantly. We pass by the second Jester fight, which in this category is optional. If you would like to see a speedrun category where we fight all the optional Jester fights and also collect every blue orb in the game, I would suggest that you check out the Cake category. Collect all, kill everything. Back to any percent, we arrive at the Time Horse from Dark Souls 2, and just like any JoJo fan, he dares to approach me. The horse charges at Dante head on, but he can be stopped by any attack to the head. A Helmbreaker is the easiest way to counter. With 2 cycles of damage, we defeat the first phase and get dropped down to the arena proper, where the boss will do much more than just run at us in a straight line. Here we instantly stinger and then DT to get into position. We stand by the tire, and then when the horse starts to run, we gold release the wheel. This hurts both the horse and the carriage, doubling the damage and stun, stopping the horse in its tracks. With that done, it's time to send this bad boy back to the glue factory, by switch canceling between the horse and the carriage, stunning the horse and knocking it over. On the OG PC port, this will always be followed by a carriage spin, but in the HD collection it's random. If you die, the difficulty adjustment for this boss makes it so that you never get a carriage spin. It's supposed to make the fight easier, but I disagree. I think it makes it way harder. We block the spin to build guard and then gold release the horse's legs clean off. I told you he'd be sent to the glue factory. If he has any health left, we finish him off with a few more switch cancels and then end the fight. Defeating him unlocks Quicksilver, a style that lets you trade Devil Trigger for the ability to slow down time. As cool as that sounds, it's not used in the speedrun, as we actually want to make time go by faster, not slower. Next up is Mission 13, and it instantly introduces new chess pieces, with the bishops showing up. These enemies avoid direct combat and can heal other chess pieces. They also throw out fireballs and have more health than the pawns. We jump cancel some pieces, then use some Devil Trigger Explosion to finish off the rest. Then we head down the stairs and past a bunch of optional chess pieces to a puzzle room. puzzle room cheats though, and the correct answer is actually behind a broken wall around the corner. Once we collect the item, we head to the next area, where Vergil is waiting for us. To catch us back up on the story, Lady finds Arkham dead on the ground and is distraught, because she wanted to be the one to kill him. Dante and Lady have a coy heart-to-heart after a gun-to-gun, and Dante gets a little bit invested in her plight. Vergil was the one that ended up killing Arkham after he was done using him to open the final door in the tower. His true goal is then revealed. He wants to use the 2 amulets he and Dante had in conjunction with the sword Force Edge to open the gate to hell. This tower is used to do that. As he's setting up to do this, Beowulf finds him and is promptly destroyed, giving Vergil the upgrade that we deserve. We beat the boss first. Arkham turns out to actually be alive though, having a last-minute moment with his daughter, as he explained that he was mind-controlled by Vergil to do all the terrible things that he has. He then dies for real this time. Lady then sets out on a quest for revenge, while Dante arrives to Vergil trying to figure out why he can't open the gate to hell. The brothers then break out into a fight, and the battle begins. This time around, there is a lot more to manage than just Vergil's stun meter. He also has 3 phases in this fight. Once he drops below 70% total HP, he will activate Devil Trigger. This gives him all the same properties that it does Dante, and that is bad. We do not want that. The 3rd phase, he jumps back to his Weeb sword instead of using his new Gauntlet weapons. This actually makes the fight easier, and we want to get there ASAP. At the bottom third of his health bar, he switches to that phase. We're going to do the combat in a way that skips right from phase 1 to phase 3. This actually skips his Devil Trigger entirely, making the fight much easier and safer, not to mention faster. We do this by blocking his attacks to start. This is much harder than previous fights, because just like in Marvel 3, Vergil is fucking busted and has mix-ups for days. If you aren't aware of what a mix-up is in a fighting game, it's basically a term where 2 distinctly different combos start with identical setups. In this instance, the first 2 attacks of both of Vergil's combos look exactly the same, but the following attacks are different. Not only that, but they have completely different timings, making them very hard to block. We need to successfully read the mix-up and punish accordingly. We do so by jump canceling aerial cross 7 times and then shotgun canceling to get some extra damage. The second wave of attacks is when we really have to ramp up the damage, so we do a gold release in the mix. Unfortunately, if it's a mix-up, it's impossible to tell what the end result of this will be. If it's the uppercut into dive kick, we'll gold release and then we can block the dive kick and punish perfectly. If it's the double kick, then he has a chance to auto parry and run away, making it impossible to skip the second phase. It doesn't always happen, but it can, and if it does, the fight becomes way scarier. From there, he teleports to the center of the room, equipping the katana and deactivating Devil Trigger. This also gives us an opening to counter and finish the fight. With Vergil defeated, this time the cutscene gives us some props, and at least it's a draw. The 2 brothers battling it out seem to have ended in a stalemate. Lady arrives, making it a 3-way, creating chaos in the combat. But just when things get crazy, Jester arrives and it is revealed that Jester is actually Arkham. He was not manipulated by Vergil. In fact, he manipulated everyone there. He had chosen his wife specifically to be a descendant of the maiden Sparta used to seal off the demon world, as her blood would be necessary to unlock the gate. On top of this, the blood of the brothers and both amulets were required. With all of these things now here, Arkham opens the gate to hell, and with Dante and Vergil weakened from fighting each other, he overpowers all 3 of them and knocks them off the tower, as it activates, thrusting him towards the sky. Mission 14 starts and all 3 of the amigos head off to stop Arkham. Before we can progress, we need to get what we should have earned a few missions ago, and the new weapon, Beowulf. These gauntlets are actually required to be equipped to leave the room, but that's fine because they're also going to replace Agni and Rudra, as they have a better DPS option. We stop by the shop buying a holy water and our last 2 purple orbs, maxing out our Devil Trigger. We need to break a combat adjudicator in order to progress. This one sheds a bit of wisdom that is only recently understood. Beowulf can charge all of his attacks, on top of having pause combos, and these charge attacks count as different attacks on the style meter. Doing a charge straight, then combo A, then an uncharged straight skips right to a C rank on the style meter. Fun fact about this elevator, if you dive kick in it, then you actually soft lock because Dante will never hit the level trigger to change to the next area. The dual hands that spawn in this room are entirely scripted, so we can get behind them as they spawn. Unfortunately, after that it becomes a bit random. Jumping at them causes them to anti-air, but this can easily be blocked, allowing for guard to be built and also positioning to be gained. With the tower activated, everything starts to change. Rooms shift around and are in different orientations and in different orders. They take new shapes and forms. Despite this, Dante still doesn't care about the gondola though. Now with Beowulf in hand and our Devil Trigger maxed out, we have pretty much all of our tools at our disposal. And at this point in the run, we straight up have solutions for certain combat encounters. For example, here we charge a straight and time the Devil Trigger explosion to kill the entire wave all at once. Then we taunt and jump cancel the Vanguard while we build up another Devil Trigger explosion. Once the last enemies arrive, then we Devil Trigger explode once again to clear the entire gondola. These combat encounters are much cleaner than anything we've done before, and the next room is a perfect showcase of this. The downside to this is that it also requires near perfect execution in order to maintain the level of play that these strategies rely on. Perfectly managing both Devil Trigger and also Guard Beater so that we have each wave of this multi-wave fight taken care of as efficiently as possible. Just before ending the level, we jump on top of this building to pick up a holy water and a red orb cache, dive kicking into the level end trigger and triggering Dante to ride Lady's motorcycle up the side of this tower. This leads to the worst mission in the game, and it starts off with the worst enemy in the game, the Fallen. These fuckers do not only fly through walls, God, Capcom, please make it stop, but they also have shields that need to be broken before you can do damage to them. We start by instantly charging a Devil Trigger explosion and hugging the door next to the exit. It's not because we're praying it'll let us out though, we're using it to build rage meter from the ensuing attacks. After a few seconds, the Fallen comes in for an attack and we can Helmbreaker it to break its shield. Then after one combo, we can do a Devil Trigger explosion. Unfortunately, this isn't quite enough to kill. We need to deactivate DT and then start building it up again and charge another Devil Trigger explosion. In the meantime, we taunt to gain DT and then block the door once again. We finish off the Fallen while the second one spawns in. We would use a holy water here, but you actually can kill the first Fallen before the second one even spawns in, so it's not really worth it to do so just for one Fallen. Especially when you can do what I'm about to do to him. There aren't any required combat encounters left in this mission, but it's still quite a long one. We have to unlock the ability to rotate the tower with these special dials. We have a new way to activate these faster now that we have Beowulf, alternating between straight and stinger. These dials change the location that the golden doors take you to. We need to collect 3 items in order to take an elevator out of the mission. Normally, you have to come into contact with a large spider fight, but by activating the dials in the right order, we can completely skip this otherwise required combat encounter. The combination is 2-1-2-2. You hit the dial every time you see one. This takes us to a small offshoot room where we can gold release the ceiling spikes to move faster. If you pay really close attention, you might be able to tell that the music isn't looping correctly. And that's because this game has a bug where when it tries to load a new music file, it loads it about 1,000 times, causing the game to lag and dropping FPS. In order to get around this, we actually disable the in-game music and then use a third-party program to make the music play depending on what room we're in. This sometimes doesn't work perfectly and causes the music to not loop correctly. It's still a lot better than having your game feel like you're playing a Nintendo Switch every time you enter a new room though. The second is simply locked away in a spider room. The third is much further away, and on our way there, we take damage intentionally to set up a death warp. It's much faster to die and respawn after collecting the third piece than it is to backtrack, and that's because there are all these spinning blades on the ceiling and floor on the way there. We can take damage on these while losing very little time. The final dial is the scariest, as it's in a room full of blood goyles who do not care that you already have basically no health. If we die early, then the death warp will take much longer and not be worth it. After running past all the blades in this room, we collect the third piece and intentionally die to respawn back at the spinning door. This is the key moment in the run that requires us to be playing on gold orb mode. However, if you were on yellow mode, you would just buy a yellow orb from the shop and then do the same thing here. It would still be faster to death warp. From here, we use those three pieces to activate the elevator and head into Mission 16. Mission 16 is essentially another fetch quest, but this time we only need to collect 2 items instead of 3. And we have to do some actual combat for once. We go to the left using our double trigger to move faster. Once we activate both dials, our balls hang low. We then smack them together and it opens the path ahead. I don't know what sort of metaphor Capcom was cooking here, but I think they burnt it. Then 2 Fallen spawn in, and this time they're at roughly the same time, so we just dump some Catholic priest bathwater on them. We can manage to get over to the door before this happens though, and block it once to gain guard and double trigger before it opens. We then head to the right side, free riding our way to the first required combat encounter. We use another holy water here, but we can't do it until we kill the first blood goyle, as killing him spawns in a few more enemies. The next encounter once again is with a ball, and this time a single one. Poor fella. With our ball busted, we can grab the second key item, which spawns in a brand new enemy. The Rooks, the tankiest of the chess pieces in the basic set, moving slowly from one place to another, doing this laser attack that hits across the entire room. We can jump cancel them even though they have an insanely small jump cancel hitbox, it's just rather difficult. We also want to make sure that we max out our rage meter for the boss on this mission. We build up double trigger for the second wave and charge straight to kill 2 pieces as soon as they spawn. We clean up the rest, being sure to leave the room with full guard and full double trigger. From here, it's just some movement until we get to the boss. The statue that broke open the door to progress in Mission 6 actually has a weapon that you can grab if you do all 3 trials. If you skip the 3rd trial though, you can still collect the weapon as it appears here. We don't bother though because it's not very good for the speedrun. Sorry, Artemis. Arriving at the library, Dante runs back into Lady and they have a bit of a heart-to-heart. Lady feels guilty for falling for Arkham's tricks and thinks it's her responsibility to stop him, while Dante says that it's his responsibility to clean up because it's his brother and his father who are causing all the chaos. Besides, there's no way that she could be able to do it, so he should. Dante starts to get why she feels the way she does though, and thinks that maybe he should be following in his father's footsteps and help to protect humanity. Still, he knows how the human ego works and knows that if he doesn't fight her for the chance, then she'll feel like she got robbed of the opportunity. Insert Dante beating women. The fight instantly starts off with a DT Stinger and a DT Straight to do big damage. This fight has 3 phases and we want to completely skip the second one if possible. The first phase, she runs around shooting at Dante, then occasionally will pull out her rocket launcher to do a big attack. Once her HP falls under 2/3 of full though, she'll start to zipline away, spawning on top of one of these bookshelves at random and throwing bombs all around herself. This is super slow though, so we plan on doing as much damage as we can to skip right to the third phase, where she goes back to running around and shooting those large attacks. By using DT and releasing, then doing a set attack sequence, we could do this, but she is scripted to run away after a certain amount of hits taken. We counter this by doing a straight that sends her flying. We can counter her following attack by shooting her bullets out of the air while she's flying away. Then she'll set up for another attack and we can finish the job. This fight is rather simple, but it's easy to mess up, and if you don't have the resources, then things can get pretty sideways pretty quickly. With that out of the way, we arrive at mission 17. The first real room of the mission has the single hardest platforming in the entire game. The cubes on this room are on a cycle, and if we have nearly perfect movement, we can make the earliest possible one. Jumping up to the first cube, we wait briefly for the falling one to pass by. Once it's in range, we jump on top and to the intermediate platform. Then we wall jump and use Rebellion's DT glide to land on the Z stack on the right. This is where it gets a little bit difficult. We wall jump straight up as the Z stack turns around and try to land on top of it before it blocks our path. Then we can wall jump and dive kick to land at the end of the room. Here we pass by the last Jester fight and head into the Trial of Wisdom. I think the wisdom on trial here is, do you remember how to kill the dual hands? Thankfully, I can remember at least that much and blasted this room rather quickly. Then we take a detour into the Trial of Skill, and this time the spikes are pissed, coming in greater frequency and in faster speeds than before. We don't just want to get through this quickly though, we also want to use the spikes to gain as much Royal Guard meter as possible. The spikes have many hitboxes, meaning it's possible to block the same spikes multiple times. In the next room, we're introduced to a new enemy, the Abyss. These guys are really fun to fight. Whenever you stun them, they go flying backwards and then jump back to you. This makes them great for building guard. Fortunately, they die to a fully charged Devil Trigger explosion. So after killing the first one, we push the second into the final two of the room and then explode to kill them all at once. We taunt and then roll through the dead body, as rolling also builds Devil Trigger. Last thing for this mission is the Doppelganger boss fight. Trapped in a gimmick room, Dante must fight himself. We're unable to hurt this boss unless we lure him into one of the closed lights on the side of the room and then open it with him in range. We do this for the first light, making sure to parry his attack to build guard and Devil Trigger. He's vulnerable for a few moments, so we grab a few dive kick jump cancels to set up for some damage. We do this on the first two lights, but we don't get the extra hits on the second one. Instead, we take aim at the other lights. If you open all of them, he becomes weak for a much longer amount of time, and at any part of the arena. We bum rush these lights and then do a Devil Trigger explosion, release, and jump cancel to just barely kill him before the lights turn off again. We then arrive at mission 18, the best mission in the entire franchise, and one of the most hype moments in any speedrun I know. Entering the gates of hell, we chase Arkham inside and see some of the coolest scenery ever created. We stinger across it into a portal, which takes us to our first encounter on this gauntlet of a level, the full chessboard. Just like real chess, we must kill the king to proceed. And just like he would in real life, Dante splashes the pawn in the face with the Catholic priest bathwater as soon as the fight starts. This doesn't actually do very much damage, but what it does do is make the king instantly vulnerable. Normally, you'd have to wait out a timer for the king, otherwise he just says, "Fuck you, no." We then instantly attack the king, and the queen doesn't like that one bit, but we use that to build up more guard and then counter with a gold release on the king's attack. Once he's dead, the other pieces all combust, except the queen, who is mid-attack. We block it once more and taunt her before she explodes into oblivion. Then we simply ignore the bad enemy and pretend they aren't here to ruin my favorite level, and head into the next painting like we're Chris Pratt. This puts us finally into the boss rush. There's a board in this room that shows all the previously fought bosses, with the exception of Vergil and Jester. And in order to leave the room, we must create a circle on this board. The fastest way to do this is to fight only 3 bosses: Cerberus, Agni Arudra, and Beowulf. For the one and only time in the run, we actually unequip Rebellion in favor of Agni Arudra, then start the Cerberus refight. Don't ask me why this room is all white in the OG PC port, it's just built different, okay? This refight is the easiest of the group. Agni Arudra absolutely decimates Cerberus. The extra environmental damage on top of the aerial attack being able to hit all 3 heads at once makes this fight a total cakewalk. We do our best to also build Gaurd for the second fight. Agni Arudra always instantly attack, and the first one can be blocked, setting up a release for the second. We keep Beowulf equipped for this moment, as releasing with Beowulf actually does more damage than any other weapon. This release hits both and does massive damage. After knocking their swords away, we do a Devil Trigger explosion, then finish them with the classic shotgun cancel. All this leaves is Beowulf, whose fight is exactly the same as before. Because we skipped Gigazip earlier in the game, we're actually going to not get enough experience to level up to level 3 Royal Guard for the entire run. This saves time because you don't get the level up menu, and it doesn't actually help to have level 3 Guard. With the third boss down, the circle is complete and we head into mission 19. Arkham, now firmly in hell, has used the Force Edge and 2 amulets to secure the power of Sparta, taking his form. Here we take a moment to stop by the shop, re-equipping Rebellion in lieu of Agni Arudra. Then we purchase 3 Holy Waters, and if you've played this game before, I'm sure you have an idea of what we're going to use those for. The first combat encounter is a series of Abyss, and we instantly start charging Devil Trigger Explosion while juggling one with Beowulf jump cancels. We then kill a second, prompting 2 more to spawn in. While they spawn in, we trigger the third to start attacking, and we loop perfect blocks to farm some more Royal Guard. Once all 3 spawn in, we explode, killing them all instantly. A roll and a taunt to get more DT, and we're into the next room. This room is a gimmick room. Breaking the mirror that's lit up causes damage to the enemies, but we can instantly break the mirror by using our stored guard from the previous fight. The second wave spawns in, and we use our DT to finish that mirror before the enemies even spawn. The next room is also a gimmick room, but this one really doesn't matter much in the speedrun. It's literally just killing the enemies fast. If you're too slow, the whole room resets, but I assure you that won't be a problem. After killing the first 2 enemies, we then send the third flying towards the final 2, then explode to finish them all at once. We once again taunt, then roll for DT, and this one is super important. We grab a key item which makes the teleporter send us to a new location, and we head towards the penultimate boss's chambers. Before we head into the boss though, we stop at the shop to switch from Royal Guard to DoppleGanger. This is the only part in the entire speedrun where we use another style that's not Royal Guard. This is a relatively new development. Arriving at Arkham, we find that his body can't quite take the power of Sparta, and it starts to malform. He turns into this freaky purple blob, but Dante still has to fight him, as unfortunate as that may be. This boss is easily the worst in the game, and in the speedrun that really shines through. He falls from the sky and then simply stands there and attacks you. But it can be very hard to read his attacks, and using Royal Guard here isn't really an option. On top of that, this man has so much HP it is sickening. After a certain amount of damage taken, he dives into the ground and becomes impossible to hit, while a sea of dolphins spawn in to absolutely destroy you, as dolphins would in real life if given the chance. Terrible bastard creatures they are. We want to avoid this at all costs, so we're going to try to get him below half HP before he dives. If we get him to half HP, then Vergil will show up and help us for the next phase, resetting Arkham, bringing him back above the ground and prone to attacking again. We do this by using a Holy Water at the start of the fight and then taunting and activating Doppelganger. We charge us straight to the max to do max damage as soon as he becomes vulnerable. Then you hit him 3 more times and deactivate Doppelganger, jumping away from him to taunt and bait out a new attack. We've already gotten him really close to the threshold for dolphins, but if he starts a long attack animation and then gets hit into the dolphin range, his animations reset and he has to finish the attack string before he can dive. We bait out the attack and then activate DoppleGanger, spamming away with Beowulf. You may notice that we're about to run out of Devil Trigger, and therefore DoppleGanger should go away. But thanks to a glitch on the original PC port, as long as we keep doing inputs on the keyboard at the same time as the controller, it'll never go away. This allows us to keep Doppelganger active until the phase change at half health. The first phase isn't so bad, to be honest, but the second phase is where the boss gets a lot worse. Vergil arrives and intends to help Dante, as he wants the power for himself. And of course, this thing can't be the final boss. In gameplay, Vergil ostensibly replaces Doppelganger, but with his own moveset. He mirrors your inputs and helps you do increased damage. Because this was a PS2 game though, they simply ran out of memory, and in order for this to function, you had to take away the ability for the player to use their style and Devil Trigger. Thankfully, you could just do a bunch of damage and dump our 2 remaining Holy Waters to end the fight. With Mission 19 done and dusted, all that's left is the final face-off with Vergil. He happens to get his own medallion back and the Force Edge. These things now being separated triggers the gate to hell to slowly start closing. Before it does for good, Vergil wants to collect Dante's half of the amulet. One last fight between white-haired anime boys. The boss has 3 phases just like in Vergil 2, and once again we're going to be skipping the Devil Trigger phase. This time instead of at 1/3 health, he activates Devil Trigger at 40% health. So we block his attacks and then Goomba stomp his ass, using a Devil Trigger explosion to add to the damage. We dive kick jump cancel a set number of times, but not too many. If you do too many, he'll auto parry and counter, and this gives him a chance to Devil Trigger. Instead, we shoot him with the shotgun and then shotgun cancel to lower his health some more. After 2 cycles, we have full Devil Trigger and maxed out real Gaurd meter, so the final wave of attacks kills him before he has a chance to do anything. And that is Devil May Cry 3 any% normal speedrun in 54:33 real time. With Vergil defeated, Dante gets the Force Edge and Vergil yeets himself into the demon world. There, he sees Mundus and states that if his father defeated Mundus, then he should be able to do it too. He would then just off screen lose this fight and become mind controlled and turned into Nello Angelo for Devil May Cry 1. Dante then goes back to the city and meets up with Lady. With the whole ordeal done, Dante has some time to reflect on what has happened, bringing a tear to his eye.
The rain already stopped.
The devils never cry.
I see. Maybe somewhere out there, even a devil may cry when he loses a loved one. Don't you think?
Hey, it's the title of the game! Dante then makes it his goal to eliminate as many demons as possible, opening up his shop and naming it Devil May Cry.
I'm absolutely crazy about it!
Thanks so much for watching and stay stylish.